Hello and welcome to another Hand Drink Solo Wine Info video. And today we're here to discuss the Bouchard Finlayson Blanc de Mer 2020. So what we're going to do is get right into the tasting first up, and then we'll circle back and try and figure out how it got to taste this way. So what does it taste like? Well, for starters, we're going to give it a sniff. And you don't have to get too close to the glass before it starts telling you exactly what it's all about. I mean, there's this super extroverted, almost Streisand-like schnoz that jumps out the glass at you. I can still smell it just a few centimeters away. There's loads and loads of peaches and apricots. And then there's also a kind of lemon blossom note, which is one of those aromas that is actually worth hunting down in the real world. I mean, if not just to expand your sensory lexicon, then because it's such a distinctive and amazing aroma. Then perhaps a little more intriguingly, there's a note that's going to be a big clue later on. It's what I would describe in this particular instance as almost being like a sort of candle wax type note. And we'll get back to why that's a telltale sign of what could be in the blend. And then finally, there's a little bit of, I guess, almost like a lime cordial, Rose's lime cordial. And we'll see when we take a sip that lime cordial note really follows onto the palate as well. Of course, there is an element of kind of almost sweet tin peaches there, and the citrus element, which was perhaps less obvious on the nose, but it really starts to show when you let the wine sit in your mouth for just a little bit.
But what does it mean?
Well, given the notes that I've just listed, we've got lime cordial, we've got citrus, we've got candle wax, we've got some lemon blossom, definitely peaches and apricots. What would be your best deduction as to what could be the three cultivars in the glass? Why don't you give it a go? And
hold on, I'll wait out here.
To put you out of your misery, the Bouchard Finlayson Blanc de Mer 2020 blend has Riesling front and center, backed up by Chardonnay and Viognier. Viognier being the larger of the two supporting components. And you might ask, but how are we supposed to get all that from just sniffing and tasting? Well, the candle wax hint, which is often linked to a kerosene note, is, as we've talked about before, a signifier that Riesling may be in the mix. Also, if you're tasting dominant elements of lime or lime cordial, then you might be right in guessing that Chardonnay is in there too. Funnily enough, when I tasted this blind a few years back, I guessed Viognier because there was loads of peach and loads of floral notes. So for me, I thought Viognier was leading the show. But I totally missed the Riesling altogether.
Fool of a took.
So while the clues are there, we don't always see them first time around. And that's for me why there's fun in sitting with a glass for a little bit longer and seeing if perhaps some elements don't become more obvious with time in the glass. That all said, in this 2020 vintage, I think the Riesling is particularly obvious. But maybe that's because I already know it's there. And if you say, look, I still have no idea how this blend even makes sense. You got Riesling and you got Chardonnay and Viognier. Why would a winemaker pair these rather disparate cultivars? Then perhaps to make sense of this, think of the classic comedic duo Laurel and Hardy. Riesling is represented by Laurel, tall, lean, angular, a little acerbic. And what it needs to round it out is the rather rotund Viognier, loads of lush fruit and waves, just a little more generous in frame than someone like Laurel. And even once you totally visualize Laurel and Hardy, you might still say, but Han, who are these guys that they think they can blend such insane, wacky, offbeat blends and get away with it? Well, the answer is Bouchard Finlayson Estate, who are 90 minutes southeast of Cape Town in the Hemel-en-Aarde Valley. They are halfway up the slope, below estates like Creation and La Viege at the top, but above an estate like Hamilton Russell, which is lower down on the slope. And if anyone in the valley has earned the right to produce one or two unusual blends, it is Bouchard Finlayson. So Bouchard Finlayson was founded in 1989 as the result of a joint venture between local wine legend
Peter Finlayson
and Paul Bouchard from Bouchard-Finlayson et Fils in Burgundy. And you might ask, well, what's a Frenchman doing trying to make wine here? Well, it's kind of relevant for him to be involved, given that his family has been working with Burgundy cultivars in Burgundy for 250 years before coming over to the Cape to produce an estate that in the end has majored in both Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So all this made him rather well suited to be able to help an estate that aims to specialize in Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. If you haven't had their Gelpen Peak, you haven't quite lived. And as for their Chardonnay, they've got a Sans Barrique, they've got a Mission Vale, and they've got a Kaimansgat or Crocodile layer Chard. So there's a lot of stuff to work through on that front, all of which are thoroughly worth hunting down. So that's all we have time for today. But if you have any questions about Riesling, Viognier, Chardonnay, Bouchard Finlayson, Paul Bouchard, or Hemel-en-Aarde in general, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. Even better, leave a review and tell me what you think of this particularly offbeat blend. And if you're watching this on YouTube, then subscribe to the Hand Drink Solo Wine Community channel so that you can stay up to date with the weekly videos that I publish, where I talk about rising winemaking stars, unusual cultivars, and the amazing wines coming out of the South African winelands at large.